Karen's voice sliced through the quiet cul-de-sac like a chainsaw through butter. "Arrest him. He's a menace," she bellowed, her jowls quivering as she jabbed a sausage-like finger at me, standing calmly on my own front lawn. The neighbors peeked from behind curtains, drawn to the spectacle of Karen, the HOA's self-appointed dictator, orchestrating my public shaming with the gusto of a reality TV villain. She was a walking caricature of entitlement, 300 pounds of indignation stuffed into a floral muumuu, her face twisted in a sneer that could curdle milk. But this time, her latest stunt was about to crash harder than her dreams of neighborhood supremacy. It all started 3 weeks ago when I, Marcus Langston, moved into Willow Creek, a sleepy suburban enclave where the biggest crime was an unmowed lawn. As the former Attorney General of the state, I traded courtroom battles for a quieter life, or so I thought. Karen, the HOA president, had other plans. From day one, she'd marked me as trouble not because of anything I'd done, but because I'd dared to question her at the first HOA meeting. I'd asked, politely, why the community pool was locked half the summer while dues kept rising. Her response? A withering glare and a hiss. Some people don't appreciate order. From then on, I was her personal project. Karen's campaign began subtly. Complaints about my mailbox being non-compliant. It was standard issue. Fines for my car being parked too close to the curb by an inch, and snide notes about my roses being too red for the neighborhood aesthetic. I ignored her, assuming she'd tire herself out. Big mistake. Karen didn't tire. She escalated. Last week, she'd cornered me at the grocery store, her cart overflowing with diet soda and frozen pizzas, and lectured me about upholding community standards. I smiled, said nothing, and walked away. That's when she must have hatched her master plan, a plan so absurd it could only spring from a mind pickled in petty grudges. Today, as I watered my lawn, 2 men in ill-fitting police uniforms stormed up my driveway, their badges glinting like cheap props from a costume shop. "Marcus Langston, you're under arrest for vandalism," one barked, his voice cracking like a teenager's. Vandalism? I almost laughed. The crime? Someone had spray-painted HOA tyrant on Karen's garage door last night. Naturally, she'd pinned it on me, despite zero evidence. Behind them, Karen stood triumphant, arms crossed, her chins wobbling as she nodded approvingly. The neighbors, drawn by the commotion, formed a loose semicircle, whispering. I caught Mrs. Jenkins, the retired librarian, shaking her head, her phone already recording. "Officers," I said, setting down my hose. "Mind showing me the warrant?" The taller cop froze, his partner glancing nervously at Karen. No warrant, of course. These weren't real police, just 2 goons she'd hired, probably off some shady gig app, to intimidate me. Their uniforms didn't even match. One had a badge that read security instead of police. Karen's face reddened as I pulled out my phone and dialed the real authorities. "You're making a mistake, Marcus," she spat. "I run this neighborhood. Here's the thing about being Attorney General for a decade. You learn to spot a fraud from a mile away." These fake cops were sweating bullets, their eyes darting like trapped rats. I kept my voice steady, almost amused. "Karen, you really should have Googled me before pulling this stunt." Her smirk faltered, just for a second, but she doubled down. "You're nobody here," she shrieked, oblivious to the growing crowd. Mrs. Jenkins was now live streaming, and I saw Mr. Patel, the local mechanic, slip away to call for backup. The air crackled with tension, the kind that precedes a storm. The Real police arrived in under 10 minutes, sirens blaring. Karen's bravado crumbled as 2 actual officers stepped out, their expressions all business. I explained the situation, handed over my ID, and watched their eyes widen when they recognized my name. "Former AG Langston?" one asked, almost reverent. I nodded, keeping my gaze on Karen, who was now stammering to her fake cops. "You said this would be easy," she hissed at them. The taller goon muttered something about just following orders before they both bolted, leaving Karen to face the music alone. The officers questioned her, their voices sharp. Karen's story unraveled faster than a cheap sweater. She claimed she'd hired security to protect the neighborhood, but couldn't produce a shred of proof tying me to the vandalism. The real kicker? I'd been at a charity gala last night, surrounded by witnesses, including the mayor. Karen's lies were collapsing, and the neighbors were eating it up. Mrs. Jenkins zoomed in on her phone, capturing every bead of sweat on Karen's forehead. "This is going viral," she whispered to Mr. Patel, who nodded gleefully. I could have let it end there, but Karen had crossed a line. Hiring fake cops wasn't just petty, it was illegal. As the officers cuffed her for filing a false report and conspiracy to intimidate, I leaned in close. "Karen," I said softly, "you picked the wrong guy to mess with." Her eyes bulged, realization hitting like a freight train. The woman who'd spent years bullying neighbors into submission was now the one being led away, her muumuu flapping in the evening breeze. The crowd erupted in murmurs, some cheering, others shaking their heads in disbelief. But the story doesn't end with Karen's arrest. The next day, I filed charges: impersonation of law enforcement, harassment, and defamation. My old colleagues at the DA's office were all too happy to take the case. Karen's reign of terror was over, but the neighborhood was still reeling. At the next HOA meeting, I proposed a vote to dissolve the HOA entirely. To my surprise, it passed unanimously. People were tired of living under Karen's thumb, of fines for every minor infraction, of her constant meddling. Willow Creek was free, and for the first time, neighbors started talking to each other, not just about rules, but about life. Karen's trial was swift. She pleaded guilty, hoping for leniency, but the judge wasn't impressed. Community service, a hefty fine, and a public apology were her sentence. She moved away shortly after. Her house sold to a young couple who planted wildflowers in the yard, definitely not HOA approved. As for me, I'm no hero. I just wanted a quiet life. But standing up to Karen taught me something. Sometimes, the quietest places hide the loudest fights. And when you face a bully, you don't just win for yourself, you win for everyone who's been too afraid to speak. The neighborhood threw a block party last week, the first in years. Mrs. Jenkins brought her famous peach cobbler, and Mr. Patel grilled burgers. We laughed, shared stories, and toasted to new beginnings. On my lawn, where Karen had tried to ruin me, kids played tag, their laughter echoing into the night. Justice isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it's the sound of a community breathing free. The end.